2.
Welcome back everyone to theCUBE's live coverage of the Red Hat Summit 2026 here in Atlanta. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, alongside Rob Strechay. Rob, this is our last interview. It has been a tremendous 3 days with you.
It has been awesome, and I could not think of two better people to wrap this up, because literally they're at the core of so many of the announcements this week.
They're going to put a bow on it for us.
Absolutely.
With that, I would like to welcome back to the show Brian Stevens, Senior Vice President and AI Chief Technology Officer at Red Hat. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. And of course, Joe Fernandes, Vice President and General Manager of Artificial Intelligence Business Unit at Red Hat. Thanks so much for you coming back on the show,
thank
Joe.
You. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so Red Hat calls AI the third pillar of the enterprise stack after Linux and Kubernetes, alongside I should say. That is a bold claim, but can you talk about why that framing matters so much, Brian?
I'd call it an aspiration.
Okay,
claim,
all right.
Maybe it's a claim, but like anytime we've got into one of those pillars, right, it was a North Star, right? And it was a North Star beginning with what we felt the industry needed, right? And then what can we unlock for the industry in open source, and then commercially, how do we build a business around that? And I think that's where we are with the AI journey. We think there's been a huge gap of what the industry needs to move forward with inference at scale, like white space that we're working really hard to fill in open source. And we think that it also plausibly will be a really amazing third commercial pillar for Red Hat.
Yeah, we just, as AI becomes more pervasive, just like everything else, it's going to need to run everywhere, right? And so the platform teams that we've been working on with for decades now really are going to be the ones that are going to be asked to manage that next layer of the stack. We know it's all going to run on Linux. We think at a distributed level it's going to run on Kubernetes, and so that's kind of what we're focused on, is how do we enable that next layer of the stack for things like inference and agent deployment and management.
Yeah, I mean, so many of the models are going open source, so many of the infrastructure is going open source, and you guys really, I mean, a lot of the stuff, I mean, we were talking last at KubeCon around vLLM and LLMD, and a lot of what has come from the open community now is showing up in a lot of the Red Hat AI product set. One of the things that's a big thing for most organizations is kind of the token economics and understanding that they're at this inflection point between the token consumption, being a token consumer, and a token producer. How does a lot of that thinking drive what you're building here in Red Hat AI?
Well, if you did kind of if you think about it from on the provider side, if you're providing models and tokens, they're kind of competing on two attributes, right? The value of the token, right? Who's got the best model to serve that? And then the economics, the cost of the token, right? And so, if we're helping to unlock, call it private inference, right? Own your own inference. We have to be able to compete. We're not the ones providing the value of the token necessarily, because we didn't build the model, but we certainly want to bring the enterprise the best unit economics of the cost of that token. They can't be like, well, it's private, it's on premise, you control the life cycle, all those great benefits, but you can't quite get the efficiency that the big model providers are. That's what we've changed. So we're putting in the hands of our clients and an open source community the most efficient token economics possible, and that's, I think, really important, we'd agree, for the industry.
Joe, talk a little bit about Red Hat AI 3.4 and why it is this bridge between builders and operators.
Yeah, so if you were at Summit last year, right, that's when we really introduced the world to Brian coming back to vLLM as the core of our inference engine, to new projects like LLMD for distributed inference, and we've spent the last year now really evolving those, bringing that LLMD is now generally available, fully supported. And now what we've added in 3.4 is that model as a service layer, right? Because as a service provider, your end users, they don't care about the infrastructure underneath, they just want quick access to model endpoints and secure the tokens to deploy those, as well as being able to meter that consumption and so forth. So a big part of 3.4 was just continuing our work on inference from from vLLM to LLMD to the optimized models to now models as a service. But now, what's going to be the biggest consumer of inference? It's going to be these agents, right? And so, where are you going to run these agents, right? Well, agents, they need inference, but they also need tools, they need guardrails, they need to talk to other agents, and then they need to be managed, right? And so another big pillar of the 3.4 release was, how do we run and manage agents securely on our platform? And certainly if you saw our keynotes this week, you saw some examples of new technology that we're investing in, and that's really going to drive, there's a lot more work to do on inference and making it more efficient and driving down the token economics. But then there's also work in terms of the agents, which we really view as sort of the next evolution of application development in the enterprise, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are trying to move from experimentation to utility. They're looking at it, how do we get to production? We've done a lot of pilots and things like that, but they may start in the cloud and want to then come on-prem because of exactly what you're talking about, the unit economics. How do you look at what 3.4 and what you're bringing to bear helps people start where they are and move to where they should be so that they can get those economics?
Yeah, again, it's in the enterprise, well, so we know that all enterprises are starting in these public cloud AI services, right? They might start with an Anthropic or with a OpenAI or with a Google, but at the end of the day, like, whether it's finding a more efficient way to produce those tokens, moving to becoming a token provider, or dealing with sovereign AI or private AI requirements, those are things that you need a platform to deliver, right? And so that's what we're focusing on, is how do we enable those platform teams to serve that need, right? Because if they have private AI or sovereign AI requirements, they're going to need a platform to deliver inference, to provide those models, to deploy those agents, and ultimately, as a cost measure, to provide maybe a more efficient alternative to just always consumption in the public cloud, because we think this technology is going to be pervasive, and anything that's pervasive, it's going to need to run everywhere, right? And so that's kind of what we're really focused on, not just with 3.4, but with our roadmap going forward, so.
Plus what he was saying around like the pattern, like you were saying agents, but like part of it is we haven't been necessarily on the front line helping a customer with a use case. We're delivering a system that allows them to do private inference, but it's not the same as helping them necessarily on how they do supply chain, using AI. That's their IP, their process, but the capability that's happening, moving from LLMs, question answer, to an agentic loop, definitely is this leapfrog. It still doesn't understand supply chain, but it's giving you a blueprint and a pattern now on how you would go about solving maybe a domain-specific problem, right? And here's the architecture on how you would do it. Because before, every customer is left with, do I have to go fine tune a model? Do I have to do RAG? I mean, there's all these choices out there, what size model? And I think the agentic architecture, the best part about it is, people are starting to get to a common ground on how to construct things. And so I think that's going to help. It's going to help us meet each other faster, because they're going to make faster ability to get things into domain-specific use cases, and then using agents, and then agents are going to drive, have, like as Joe's saying, greater needs for like token delivery.
But let's talk about those agents for a second, because they are making decisions and taking actions, which is so exciting on one hand, and also petrifying to a lot of risk-averse C-suite members of the C-suite.
You don't have your own agents running on your laptop right now, doing your credit cards?
I do not. Maybe.
Not here.
Yeah, we'll see. But how do you build trust with those CIOs who are rightfully concerned about that? Because there are a lot of...
What's funny is like, what I love about being client-centric is you hear so many perspectives. Like, we learned early in our careers that the danger I always had is I had one engineer meet one big tech company, and then, all clients look that way, right? And it's like, as we all know, is not true, and that's what makes our jobs fun, and I think your job's fun and interesting, is everybody's got a different view. And so I've actually seen just today some that are like, never, right?
Yeah.
As
yep.
OpenClaw or whatever coming in to one bank that's already using OpenClaw in limited rollout for limited services, but they're already using it. And I'm like, talk about like opposite ends of the spectrum. Where we're trying to come into is, how do we bring that together, right? Like how is that one like willing to take a lot of risk and you know what I mean on that end, and one can't ever use this technology, it's too risky. And we think like we've done a lot of this around trusted data in the past and trust in binaries. This will be a new level for us, but what we love is like, yeah, that's the agentic architecture, but imagine if you could do that with authentication and authorization between the agent and the tool. Imagine if you could do that with quota. Imagine if you could do that with guardrails to keep things, like in trusted sources. Like you put all that together, it feels like that helps it kind of go this way, so somebody's not making a bet on I'm either all in at all risk or I'm not ever using it.
Yeah, and I mean the key thing that distinguishes an agent is autonomy, right? You're giving that agent a goal or an objective, but you're not telling it exactly how to get to that goal, right? Which makes it unpredictable in terms of what it's going to do to get there, and we saw, again, some of that in the keynote this morning, right? So you want to have things in place. You want to give that agent an identity, right? And make sure that it's authorized to do the things that you want it to do, but not authorized to do the things that it don't. You have to figure out how to pass it credentials, what it should be able to access in your network, on your file system, and then ultimately be able to trace what it did to be able to debug, right? Like, because all you gave it was a prompt, and then it decided what tools it was going to call, what paths it was going to take, where it was going to try. And so agent tracing, evaluation, observability, that whole agent ops area, there's just a lot of innovation there as well to be able to manage these things.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, that was some of the big stuff that kind of came at the end of today's keynote and things like that, are really the agent ops aspect of it, and the data integration, the being able to, like you said, the evaluation hub, and being able to understand what model. Well, tell us how people should look at this, because I love the idea of agent ops.
Yeah.
I think to me that makes so much sense of where people are going to go, and not only what work they have to do, but their careers, is how do you build into agent ops and things like that.
I mean, as long as there's been applications and infrastructure, there's been observability and metering and logging and metrics, right? But every new generation of technology creates new requirements, right? So we were doing monitoring and logging in the client server era, but then we moved to internet and then cloud computing, you saw a whole new set of vendors, a whole new set of technologies. I think agents is the same thing, right? There's aspects of managing agents that overlap with how we manage applications, and then there's things that are just completely new and different that you didn't have to think about before, and so that's creating a lot of innovation in open source communities that we're participating in the vendor community and companies that we're partnering with, and then things that we're trying to bring to our platform, like what we showed this morning. So it's super interesting to see how these domains evolve, yeah.
Joe, were you going to add to that, Brian?
No, I was just saying, like, if you saw, like, what was it, January, February, OpenCloud coming out, it was like the first time I'm like, before we were acquired, we had a bunch of Mac Minis and we left them behind. I'm like, oh, I wish I had my Mac Mini, right? Because that was the original, like, we secure these things, we put them over there and we lock them up.
Right.
Well, then what value do you get out of it if it's just kind of locked up? One end, we have a container for that, but even then, it's so much more than just containerizing it. And then the other extreme was, like I was saying, you just download it yourself and you give it full access. Probably not. You know what I mean? The best thing. You know what I mean? But it's been fun. It's been fun to watch it, and it's like, it's not a massive computer science lift at all to bring what Joe's talking about into the platform and into agentic. So it won't be like this 2-year. Hey, OpenCloud was an idea. Now in 2 years we'll have secure versions. This is like going to happen so quickly.
Right.
So I think it's good for the user. Right, because they're going to get the best of both worlds. They're going to get the level of autonomy that they want, but with full-on tracing, telemetry, authorization, authentication, right, that they need, right, for virtually any use case, and they won't need the Mac Mini, right, and they'll just be able to run it on their OpenShift cluster.
Yeah.
So Brian and Joe, I want to ask you both this final question, which is about fast forwarding 3 to 5 years, and AI in fact is the third pillar of the enterprise. That aspiration has been achieved, exactly.
Exactly.
What part of the conversation that we're having today will look obvious in hindsight, and what does that future really look like? I want to start with you, Joe, and then end with Brian.
I mean, when I'm thinking about what it'll look like, I go back to when I started at Red Hat 15 years, I came here to work on platform as a service, which became containers and Kubernetes, and working with Brian and the team, right? Those are novel concepts, right? We were having to explain to folks what a container is, why you needed to orchestrate, and why this was a safe and secure way to run your applications. If somebody's building an application today, they're not spinning up a virtual machine and putting an app server inside of it. They're building a microservice and running it in a container, right? So it's just gone from novel to mainstream over like the last 10 years. So when I look ahead to 5 years, I think all the things that we're talking about now and like these novel problems, they're going to get solved, and it's just happening so much faster. You know, I don't know if I have another one of these in me. I don't like to think beyond 5 years, but like I think it's just going to happen and so much faster than you know what we've seen before. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So.
You know, I think it was just like what we did in the early days of Linux, right? It wasn't around like, yes, we had innovation, but we weren't like patting ourselves on the back. What we did is we created an open industry of choice and innovation and partners and ecosystem, right? Where the end users were the benefactor, and then it created a marketplace for everyone, as opposed to the world before that was silos, right? And I think that's where we are kind of right now in AI, is we're in this siloed world. Enterprises have to make these choices between hardware or model or service provider or closed or open or cloud or not cloud. And so I think if we're successful with this, that we've just opened up this whole world by being that one durable thing that allows that ecosystem to build around it, which is amazing innovation is going to come from the ecosystem. And so we want to do our part to enable that choice for users.
Well, we have saved the best for last, so thank you both so much, Joe and Brian, for coming on the show yet again with your insights and advice. Thank
Always
you.
great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Rob Strechay. That wraps up theCUBE's live coverage of the Red Hat Summit 2026. We will see you next time.
Every plane waits its turn.